Hello, and welcome to our series, Delivering the Tech That Delivers for Government, sponsored by Future Tech Enterprise on Federal News Network. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and today I'm talking with Bob Venero. He's the CEO of Future Tech, about the innovations his company is at work on to help federal systems integrators be ready to deliver on government missions anywhere at any time. Welcome, Bob. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So just to kick off, maybe you can start off by just kind of describing a little bit about Future Tech, how you guys work with, and also how you impact federal systems integrators.
Yeah, absolutely. So Future Tech's been around for 27 years now, and we really started working with federal systems integrators day one when we started the company in the basement of the house in 1996, I think it was. And we were really focused on how do we help those federal systems integrators accomplish their mission, whether that was supporting the warfighter, whether that was putting satellites into space, whether that was keeping our borders safe, whatever their mission was, we tried to make that our mission and make sure that all of our teams understood what their mission was, and so that they could try to help impact anything that was coming through the federal systems integrator group in support of the government contracts that they were supporting. And that was kind of the premise of, where we were going to go, what we were going to do, and how we were really going to focus.
Well, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you manage that entire IT lifecycle for those customers' PCs, right? While driving cost avoidance and efficiency, because that's a key element for them. And we've been talking for this series, we've been talking to federal systems integrators and talking about that. And increasingly, being able to manage that effectively and over the life cycle is really important, right?
Oh, extremely important. And, I speak on this a lot in many different formats. But sometimes, folks, when time is getting tough, times are tough, and numbers are tight, right? Everybody jumps to the PC to reduce cost, whether they take it and make it last another 2 years beyond its life cycle that they should, or whether they're going to not refresh, or whether they're going to reduce the specs. And it's amazing to me to see that. And when I interview individuals in corporations, I ask them, what is their most important asset that they believe they have in their corporation? And they talk about their ERP, they talk about their capture programs, right? And when I say them, I say, okay, now how do you access all of that information? And they access that information through a PC. And every one of their employees has a PC. And so when we look at the importance of what that PC does and making sure that you are having the proper life cycle components tied to that PC, it is one of the most important tools that they have in their organization. And we try to re-educate them on the value of what that is. And it's really seemed to work. We had an example of another federal systems integrator that we work with. We do something that is called a productivity analysis. So we will go into an organization, we will take a look at the technical debt that they have associated with their PCs. We will do a productivity analysis on how much lost productivity is in their environment for machines that are 4 years or older. And the numbers are astounding. So this one customer that we worked with, we came in, did the analysis. They were losing about $300 million a year in lost productivity by having 26,000 devices that were over 4 years old. And you don't realize that, right? Because it's based off of the employee's salary, their benefits, right? All of those things. And if a machine is running slow or has problems, you're impacting that cost. And it was amazing. This customer did not have a budget for it. But after we did the productivity analysis, they refreshed 26,000 devices in 1 year. And we got an award for it. Their customers were extremely happy, right? It changed how they were looking at that asset, because a lot of times we get caught up in the fact that, oh, it's just a commodity. It's just a PC, but it is one of the most important commodities in PCs. So as we've worked with the federal systems integrators, we've created solutions to help them manage those IT assets to get the most out of the life of them, but then also to help categorize them in where they're going to be used based on a profile of an individual. And so it allows us to scale the capabilities of that device based on if you're a task worker, right? If you're a high-end engineer, right? If you're doing something that is more remedial in an organization, and be able to reutilize assets that they may have already purchased to support those lower end tasks while empowering the people that are highly compensated and highly paid with the best devices so that they can accomplish their job in a better fashion compared to their competition.
So have you also seen a change in how companies are looking at their devices and their end user devices because so many people no longer are just working in the office, right? So managing them is not just about inside that enterprise network, but it's also remote or at the edge or wherever they are. And has that changed how you guys are looking and working with your customers?
I think it changed things initially. If you look at right what happened at COVID, right? So
Right.
COVID came out and then the world went remote. And so all of our customers at that point were like, oh my God, help. We need to have machines sent to people's homes because some of them were at a desk with a desktop or a workstation. And so they had to change the way that they were acquiring and what type of devices they were using. And so we had to then be able to send out tens of thousands of devices, right, to people's homes at the time and get them up and running. And when you go to that type of, now we'll call it a more mature hybrid remote workforce, there are security constraints, concerns, right? Things that you have to look at differently in order to support the mass of those folks that are now working remote. And so there's been some changes there that have happened that we have helped the customer with in the sense of trying to have their applications already implemented and installed on the device at our factory before it gets to the end user so that they can be up and running day one, making sure that they're being productive for their environment, making sure that the right security attributes are tied into that system and they are being monitored and managed, as well as a predictive analysis around potential failures, right? And using products like NextThink that are going to tell you when a device is going to have a problem predictively, and you can remediate it in advance versus having to wait till it fails and then losing all that productivity that's tied to it. So it's definitely changed the game. It's also changed the game how people are looking at it from a cost perspective, right? We're doing a lot more of what we call enhanced PC as a service
Right.
in order to support, right, the customers and the challenge around cash right now. Cash is king for a lot of corporations, especially in the federal systems integrator space. And we're moving a lot of the capital expenditures to operational expenditures, right? And creating an OpEx capability around the PC space. But at the same time, wrapping around it a complete solution that helps them support the remote worker, tie them to less failures, be able to pay monthly, and also have a one-time charge on a new asset that will last the life of that asset in support through our organization.
Right. And doesn't that help a lot with, honestly, with cost avoidance because you're ahead of it, right? And you have a better overall view of your environment and all the devices on it.
Yeah, cost avoidance is a big one. The OEMs do not like it, right? We've built a very good program around cost avoidance because when you do cost avoidance, that means that we're utilizing an asset, right, for a longer period of time and or in a different arena. And when you do cost avoidance, that means someone's not purchasing a new device. So as an example, we run what's called a B stock program where we're supporting customers with the own devices they have, reutilizing them, refreshing them, and getting them back out there in the workforce based on those different categories that we kind of talked about before. One customer this year, we gave them cost avoidance of over $20 million. That meant that they didn't have to buy $20 million worth of new equipment. Now, like I said, our OEM was not happy about that because their forecast was those $20 million worth of equipment, and they're not getting that. But we look at the longer term picture, right, associated with the relationship with that federal systems integrator and how we can help them be better, more efficient, and more productive. And these type of offerings that we've built around the PC space are far beyond the best in class that are out there. And that's why we're in, 85+% of the federal systems integrators out there.
Maybe talk about it. We didn't talk about this yet, but you talked at the very beginning about how the idea that like the PC is a commodity, right? My end user device is a commodity, but increasingly there's a lot of focus on that user experience. So the person on the other side of that screen of that device, making sure that experience is great, right? And do you find that a lot of people are talking a lot more to you about that because it's also a big focus in the federal government?
Yeah, it's a focus in the systems integrators as well as the government. Now you have customer experience officers, right, in organizations, because customer experience is very important, but also employee experience,
Right.
right, is very important. And there's a lot of studies that have been done that show that because of the number of engineers that are out there versus the engineering jobs, there are a lot more jobs than there are engineers right now. And that's a challenge that we're all trying to fix by re-educating individuals, right? And having, STEM be a more important part of school and educating. But what you're seeing right now is, in a lot of these studies, is a individual who is looking at multiple offerings at a organization will take the job that provides them the best experience with their technology compared to somebody that is giving them more older or antiquated technology offerings. And so when you take that just at the employee level and then you put hyper focus on it at the customer level, experience is everything. And I always bring it back to, you could go to a restaurant and they could have the best pizza in the world there. But if you have a crappy experience multiple times at that place with the service and the attitude and the delivery and whatever the case may be, you're not going to go, right? Just because the product is the best, you're not going to put yourself through a bad experience. And that's what you're seeing out there in the federal systems integrator space with their customer, but as well as with their employees. And so there's a big focus on how do we make that better for them. So when we do onboarding with a new customer and or a new employee that they have, we're sending them kits. That kit will include a welcome letter, an actual letter. It'll include a Yeti cooler with the customer's logo on it. It'll include things that make their onboarding a better experience. And you can do that at the customer level as well, right? Not just the employee level.
Right. And I mean, and you get to your point, like that employee user experience, customer user experience. It's like now it's almost like the total experience, right? End to end. It's just becoming more and more essential. And obviously your device is a huge piece of that. Like
Oh,
every
yeah.
day, it's the one thing that you probably touch most every day of your job.
Yeah. And the OEMs know that, right? And that's why they're making, excuse the term, sexier machines, right? We used to not care. It was square, big, bulky. It didn't matter. Now it's how sleek is it? How thin is it? Where are the bezels, right? Within the screen, things that normal users back when wouldn't be like, oh, these bezels are too thick. Now it's like, why is this happening? Why do I
Right.
have a thick bezel?
Right.
It's interesting.
I think there's some topics that are really hot right now that are really essential, and I think that you guys are working on too. So let's start off with talking a little bit about AI-enabled PCs and what those offer and how they kind of help customers maybe future-proof their investment a little bit.
Yeah, AI is a very interesting topic right now. I kind of look at AI where, the initiation of cloud was, right? It's very early in adoption at a lot of the customer world that we work in the federal systems integrator space. I think a lot of folks are trying to identify, right, what are the things that we can use from a business outcome perspective within AI, not only at the PC level, right, but at the enterprise and infrastructure level. And what are the guardrails, right, that they need to start taking a look at? It's an interesting scenario, and I talk quite a bit about this on AI, where, as we look at the customers we're supporting in the federal systems integrator space around AI and the guardrails that they need to have, the bad actors on the other side, right, have no guardrails, right? They are going to use it to its full capabilities, and we need to be smart about how we're supporting it within our own fences, within, the federal systems integrator space in the United States, and, in other areas. And I think the manufacturers obviously have seen the value of what AI can do at the PC level, and hence the recent launches around Copilot and AI empowered PCs, which are interesting, right? Because when the announcements came out recently on the AI PCs powered, none of them were Intel based with the big launch that came out. It was Snapdragon, right? It was a ARM based processor versus Intel. Now, Intel has the same capabilities and offerings, right? But the big push was around Snapdragon. And it was very interesting when I saw that, because each of the OEMs that you look at are huge utilizers of Intel. And to have now a launch with a competing product was kind of interesting. But I get the reason why, right? Because if you look at the power consumption capabilities of the Snapdragon versus Intel, and its need and output, and having a neural processing unit, right, that is tied to it, a separate chip that can offload from the GPU and others, you're going to be able to get a lot longer battery life, right, without worrying about a lot of the heat and consumption around the processor. Now, that's just the technology, right? But at the end of the day, what are the business outcomes that the AI-enabled PC is going to do? Where is it going to bring a lot more compute and capabilities to the edge and to the users? I'm kind of bullish on making sure that you're very smart in an organization, especially around the integrators, that you have the right guardrails to that PC, because people don't realize, individuals a lot, what risk is there from an AI perspective if they're throwing a product that they're working on out into Chat GPT land, right? And then that information and IP is then out there for the rest of the world to see. And so we've got to be really careful of what is going to go on those PCs, what we're going to do at it, on it, and how we're going to isolate and create fences around what that end user's capability will be within that PC. And so I think when we look at the announcements, the rest of the world can go and have fun and beat it up, and I'm doing it, but the integrator space has to be very careful, right? And what they're going to allow, what they're going to turn on. There needs to be a lot of testing and vetting, right? But that being said, you don't want to be left behind, right? Compared
walk
to
the fence.
yeah, that are engaging it and utilizing it. And look, there's no doubt the world has changed based on a lot of the introductions from a software and a hardware perspective in NVIDIA and others. And we've made some big announcements with Northrop Grumman and NVIDIA, right, on firsts in the market. And now it's a matter of how do you, again, properly use those tools to create the business outcomes that you're going to want? How do you enable the warfighter to be more nimble and effective based on those tools? How are we going to take those tools and go beyond the PC and bring it into wearables for those warfighters, right? There's so many things now that are going to be exponentially growing, especially in the federal systems integrator space. To that point, our teams have developed a AI readiness assessment for the federal systems integrators. So we had a group of very high-end, top secret SCI individuals who understand, right, large language models and AI and data science, who came from the federal systems integrator space, build this tool. And now we're going to be launching it, I think, next month, and bringing that to the systems integrators. Say, hey, use this tool. See where you are on your journey, and what are the things that we can do to help you go down that path. And you talk about future investment protection.
Right.
AI-enabled PCs are definitely one of those ones where you want to buy into it early, because when you need it and you've created the proper rails around it, you want to be able to activate it and let it go, right? And so that's important to have from a forward-looking perspective.
Right, that's strategy. So Is the tool you created, it's helping kind of identify where there's gaps and places that they might need to act in order to move forward?
Correct. And also, best practices, right? Specific to the federal systems integrator space and what their rules are compared to, right, commercial rules. There's no commercial rules at this point, right?
Right.
But there are federal systems integrator rules, and we have to be able to adhere to that. And that's what this program was designed to do.
Right. And then on the flip side of that, they're trying to support, the government missions, and their agencies are also trying to establish those guardrails and those strategies and determine how to use it. So they need to align with that so that they're in that kind of middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about, why they have these guardrails. What's been interesting in people we've been talking to, one of the things they talked about how they expect it to help with cost avoidance and actual savings is using AI to analyze the data that's coming in about the devices, right,
Mhm.
themselves, and implementing AI in that way, and helping them be more proactive and preventative, right?
Yeah, and that's a key, right? You have to define, what do I want to use AI for? And there are going to be different use cases that you'll do. Predictive analysis is awesome, right, with it. And you're going to see so many software applications that today have done predictive analysis just based on standard data points that are going to be hypersonic once they implement the AI capabilities within them. So you're going to see these software applications, right, do things that you never would have thought, right, could be capable. And we're seeing that in so many different areas, in so many different organizations, right, across the plethora of customers that are out there.
Right. And I mean, these organizations that we're talking about, they have thousands and thousands of users. So when you think about that, I mean, you mentioned the example you talked about, the number of PCs that were replaced earlier. Like that's a lot if you can wrangle all that data and quickly be able to know trends and use things that you didn't know before that you were just looking at on a lot of different dashboards, the swivel chair approach. Like that's a huge potential savings. So
Oh yeah, there's no doubt, right? So when you look at, to your point, the data was always there, right? It was now, okay, how do I validate the data, right? Assimilate the data and use it in a way that allows me to reduce costs, that allows me to be more efficient, that allows me
timely.
to win, yeah, to win the programs, right? That we call it P wins, right? Program wins. How do we get more efficient in the programs we're trying to go after as a company? When an organization implements AI within their structure to go after bigger programs, right, for the government, they're going to be able to do it much more efficiently, and be able to take a look at the data that the government provides and come up with a better solution, right? I think that's a lot of what you're going to see is better solutions. I mean, you look at, what Northrop Grumman's doing with their B-21 radar, and now the Manta Ray, right, underwater unmanned device. And these are things that are going to come to fruition so much quicker because of AI, and so much more inexpensively because of AI. Because remember, prior to the AI and AI-enabled PCs and solutions, it was humans that were doing the analysis and looking at it. And now we can make that happen so much faster by leveraging the tools that are out there.
It is super exciting to your point. Well, before we wrap today, I just want to touch real quick and hear a little bit about what I know is your day one readiness infrastructure bundles. And maybe you,
Yes.
you can close us out by talking a little bit about that and how some of these templated solutions really help with enterprise-wide compliance.
Yeah, well, as we look at, understanding what our customer set does, right? And being in the business of supporting the integrators for, 27 years going on now, there's a lot of common things that we found, right? And one of those common things was 80% of all of the capture activities that they had tied to 80% of the same infrastructure needed to go get those captures and those programs. And one of the pain points that we saw was that it took so long on each individual program to architect, design, approve, procure, deliver, and implement, right? Months and months and months. And what we did was we said, hey, how do we help simplify this? How do we reduce the cost associated with going after these large captures for the customer? And how do we create a common platform that can answer to that 80% of the same structure? And so what we built was a catalog that we call Day One Readiness that allows a company to be able to have their architects and their engineers go into this portal to actually, based on a use case, see the exact bill of materials that they need, be able to look at the budget associated with it, look at the architecture design, and then take it right out of that portal, go into a cart, and then go up to management for approval. The
Wow.
next phase of that goes beyond, which is to now say, okay, we are going to have in stock a percentage of those 80 percenters that are there in our warehouses across the country and config centers that are ready to go. And that is so important right now. If you look at certain video cards, right, from or GPUs from NVIDIA, an H100 could be 6-7 months to get delivered. And that is a key card to AI and all of these. Now, we have them in stock. They're ready to be supported for the captures that the customer has. And so what we've done is we've taken the time to implement, down from months to weeks. We've taken the time to quote down from weeks to hours. And that now helps them go and win more programs and more deals and stand it up quicker, because speed of delivery, speed of quote, speed of support today is extremely important. And then the other thing we did with that is we created the ability to have that in an OpEx scenario. So they're not buying that entire infrastructure. They get it, it goes into their facilities, but they pay by the drink. And now that really helps them by not being, capital intensive when they're going out to win these programs. And so we've already implemented it in one of our customers. It's being implemented in 3 others. And it's really going to make a difference in the business that they do. So very, very excited about this capability that we've launched as a company.
That is exciting because that consumption model is really where everybody wants to operate now because it makes it easier across the board. And then just having the ability to access what they need right away without having to wait, like that's a huge advantage.
And be
So
on-prem at the same time, right? Because, and I speak about this all the time, cloud is there and I get it, right? We are a big on-prem company, and we are that way because we want to be more risk averse. There will be an event that happens that is either going to take down AWS or Azure or somebody. And if you've got everything in that cloud and that event happens, right, what do you do as a company? And so we really preach on the ability to say, if you're really going to the cloud for cost savings, right, then if we give you that same model on your own prem with less risk, why wouldn't you go that way, right? And we asked them to do an analysis of downtime cost. So how much does it cost a program to be down per minute? Now, if it's $1 million a minute, man, you probably want that on-prem, right? And within your own fences and the controls. If it's $1 a minute, let it sit up in the cloud, because if something happens there, it's not going to impact your business, right? But it's an interesting thing to look at. And my opinion is this, and it is my opinion. When we look at the bad actors and who they're going after the AWSs, the Azure, the Google Clouds, right? And now they have better tools to go attack. And so you need to make sure that you're very diverse in what you have and in your environment from a protection perspective, if there is an incident or an event that happens that will impact your overall business.
I think that's a great point to actually end on because it gives people a lot of things to think about.
Yes.
Bob, thanks much for talking with me today and sharing the exciting initiatives underway at Future Tech. It was really exciting to hear about them. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and my guest today has been Bob Venero. He's the CEO of Future Tech. To learn more about enterprise infrastructure and asset management best practices, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Future Tech Enterprise. Have a great day and see you soon on federalnewsnetwork.com.